Oh my. I just want to thank you for the invitation to preach, and especially thank you, Emily. This is a community and a congregation I have long admired as long as I've been on the island, and have gotten to know you in various ways. It's the first time I've ever stood in this pulpit. Wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you for this gracious invitation. And I want to say, put on your crash helmets and fasten your seatbelts. Today we're talking about love. But since we have a candle lit anyway, why don't we just try this together? I'm not a musician. I don't know how it'll go, but let's just try it. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. That's the only thing that there's just too little of. What the world needs now is love, sweet love. Not just for some, but for everyone. Well, with that text from Mr. Bacharach and from this community, I bring you another ancient text, this one from my tradition, which is the Christian tradition, the Jesus way, the words of the Apostle Paul, and I bring them to you from 1 Corinthians 13. Listen in love for truth. If I speak with human eloquence and angelic ecstasy, but do not have love, I'm nothing but the creaking of a rusty gate. If I speak with powerful visions, revealing mysteries, offering insights, if I have faith that can move a mountain, but I do not love, it all amounts to nothing. This is the Apostle Paul talking. My goodness, any of you know that tradition? Doesn't sound like the Paul we've been led to know. If I give everything I own, I believe is right, but do not love, I've gotten nowhere. So, no matter what I say, what I think, what I do, without a connection to love, I remain disconnected from what matters most. Love. What the heck is love? Well, let's start with the definition. Anyone? Yeah. Maybe 5-year-olds will define love. But I am a bit more cautious. Did you wonder what I was going to say there? When I was younger, I was taught that love is intelligent goodwill. Well, perhaps. When I was in college, I had a little book called Love is a Feeling to Be Learned. Maybe. I've always enjoyed the Bette Midler song, The Rose, where love is a seed, it becomes a flower, it lays under the winter snow. I love that imagery. Perhaps. So I've spent the last month wrestling with definitions, and I'm finally just up here with no definition to offer you. But let me ask, do you Unitarian Universalists have a definition of love? I'll just let you think about that for a while. Does anything immediately come to mind? I mean, I love your covenant of love. I thought that was this congregation's covenant till I did more research and discovered, I guess it's broader than that, isn't it? A lot of Unitarians know that. And let me ask you this too, just by way of, as we get into this. Do any of you know anyone else named Foot on this island besides me? Raise your hand. Is there any Foot in this room right now? Anyone? So I'll just say, When I hear the last name Foot of anyone, and I know there are others on this island, I automatically assume they're cousins. So if you want to know if I'm related to the other Foot, I will say, yes, we're cousins. We're all cousins. I feel that way about the Unitarians too. I'm from the United Church of Christ, the Congregationalist arm of that, and I know we're cousins. We might wrestle a bit. Our family trees have gone in different directions, but I love preaching to my cousins. It's just good. It's just good to be here. So let me get back to the fact that the word love resists definition. In fact, in my tradition, we're told that God is love. So there you go. Try to define any of those three words. God is love. But even though I'm not up here to define love, I know we can describe it, right? We've already heard it. Heard it described incredibly well in our prayer time. Kind of like that ancient image of folks with limited access to an elephant, right? Circling it, grabbing a part of it, giving details of it. In so many ways, they're accurate, right? And yet, none of them is complete. So we can examine love, we can name what we know, and we can work to put the heart of that knowledge at the center of all we are. But let me warn you about trying to define love. Because I think what happens in a definition of love is that we domesticate it. Soon as we wrap words around something, we can begin to imagine that we have somehow captured it, controlled it, tamed it. I love the resistance to defining love. Please describe it. And remember that most faith traditions put that little word love kind of right at the center of who they are and what they imagine they're doing. You've probably seen that poster of the golden rule in many traditions, right? And I love that poster reminds us that we're all connected by love. Forgive me, as I quote that poster, for being reductionist. But let me just offer some of those quotes, because I say that because I think just to talk about love is going to be reductionist, and let's not forget that. When I start to speak of love, I know I will tell you what you already know. I know I might suggest what you don't yet know. And I know there's going to be stuff I'll say that you will have to disagree with because of your own experience. I've just got this little piece of the elephant I'm trying to talk to you about. So hear these words from the Jewish tradition, their Torah. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. From the Islamic tradition, no one of you is a believer until you love for others what you love for yourselves. From the Hindu tradition, this is the sum of duty. Do nothing to others which, if done to yourself, would cause pain. From the Christian tradition, do unto others what you would have them do to you. Or from the Christian tradition, God is love. Or faith, hope, and love, these three abide, and the greatest of these is love. And forgive me, from the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Or, love is the spirit of this church. Love is the spirit of this church. Service is its practice. Don't we know that love is at the center? And yet, don't we know that each of those traditions I just quoted, who affirm love at their core, each of those traditions, and I name mine especially, have used their tradition to justify atrocities. Every one of us. Well, I don't know about the Unitarians. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So what's going on there? Those of us who work in the realm of spiritual connection, we know there can be profound disconnection in these spaces. We who work to center ourselves in love know how easy it is for that connection to the center to unravel, don't we? Let me get back to our text from this morning. The Apostle Paul, he's writing to a church in the city of Corinth. It's a Roman commercial and political center, and in that Roman culture, there were strict social hierarchies and obligations. Dominance and submission were the norm. In the midst of this Roman provincial capital, this small spiritual community emerges based not on hierarchy but mutuality. Maybe we can live a different way. They work to value everyone. They work to put equality and justice at their center. They demonstrate that equality in things like eating together, sharing their resources, affirming each other. But it doesn't take long for that community to begin to unravel. Who knows what happened? What happens to any spiritual community? Maybe their new community seemed more like chaos than cohesion. Maybe the pull of power or prestige they were trying to set aside was just too strong. Maybe they couldn't even see it. Maybe they just got tired. Perhaps they just lost track of the heart of love. By the time Paul writes to them about 50 CE, their community is fractured. They're listing the lineage of their spiritual identities like they might list their connections to Caesar. Their common meals have reverted to patronage feasts that reward the wealthy and the powerful and leave the hungry behind. The abundance of talents and gifts with which their community's been blessed have become ways of ranking who's most important among them. Love has become defined, part of some list somewhere that they should be doing, and then they conveniently set aside. I have been in such communities. Those of us who, in our attempt to describe what a life transformed by love looks like, get distracted by the appearances until those expressions of love have become simply one more hollowed out requirement of some conventional religion. It is what happens, folks, and it happens to all of us. When I was a young Christian, I'll never forget, I was evangelical and optimistic and earnest. And a dear woman who was not in my small circle looked at me one day and said, "You think I'm going to hell?" Person I loved. And I thought my religious duty was to tell her yes. How on earth did that happen when I was in a community that proclaimed love center? because it is so easy. That center to get knocked away, hollowed out, set aside. We have so much to do. We have work to do, right? And those other people, they are so wrong, right? In our efforts to create a new beloved community, it's so easy to fall back into our old patterns. And those with the most power and privilege have the hardest time getting to the new. And love, like faith and hope, become defined and domesticated. Let me tell you this. When people in power are calling for love, beware. When we think we've got it mastered, beware. That kind of love is domesticated love. And what people are probably calling for, not love, but preservation of their power. You all just need a little more love. No. People working for justice call for love. Listen. They know the cost of what they're calling for. You know, when the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. He already knew the ways white religious leaders, even those who considered themselves progressives, would get lost in their privilege. He knew what it was meant to be told to just sit down and love people and wait for change to come. He knew what it was like to be told about domesticated love. And he stood up and said, I am not going to let you turn my love into anything but love. Because hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. When the scholar, activist, union professor Cornel West spoke about love, you might have heard this. He said, never forget, justice is what love looks like in public. That's undomesticated love. And Cornel West knows how easily that word love can be captured and defined and dismissed. If I ever imagined that love is a nice feeling that has nothing to do with the complete transformation of my own heart or my own community or my own world, I need to reconsider. And that, my dear siblings in spiritual community, is why I love the new UU image that you folks are wrapping your hearts around. I don't know much about what it means to have a new image. I saw your worship service last week. I listened to some of those words and I thought, yeah, I know. It's like, why can't we just leave it alone, right? And let it go and let it be what it's always been. But oh my goodness, this is a community that has said we want to put love at the center. And then from it radiating out some descriptions. Justice, that public face of love. Generosity, that expression of love. Equity, interdependence, pluralism, transformation. With love at the center. It's like Paul's talking to that fractured community back in Corinth. No matter what I say, what I think, what I do, without a connection to love, I remain disconnected from what matters most. And if you're feeling tired, if things seem chaotic, if you're wondering if this new community, this beloved community, can really work, let me suggest that maybe you've gotten a little disconnected from love. Another Union professor, Cornell West teaches at Union, another Union professor, John Tatamano, he teaches a course on interreligious identities, and it's a fascinating course. He recently made this observation. Let me just read it to you. Students at Union have always served as a kind of weather vane, an advance indicator of where the cultural winds are blowing. What a number of them seem to be saying to my colleagues and me at this moment is this: we cannot sustain ourselves in our activism from secularist resources alone. We need spiritual resources to inform, fuel, and sustain us. Now, he goes on to say, this doesn't herald a return to church. In this increasingly interreligious, spiritual but not religious, Buddhist, multiple belongers, what they're saying is, regardless of affiliation or lack thereof, we need a depth of vision that can't just come from the broad materialistic left. We cannot continue this way with shallow diagnosis of deep-rooted problems, superficial resources of a reductive and disenchanted world. We need something more. And I would suggest this something more is love. Don't define it. Don't define it. Live it. Keep it at the center and live it. So let me say one more thing. I think as you gather here every week, you have one big job. We have one big job. Come to a sewing bee. And our work is to take these tattered edges of our spirits, our exhausting work for justice, our ongoing generosity, our regular, eye-opening vision for community, carefully, patiently, joyously, re-stitch them to the heart of love.